What is your favorite myth?
Myth. Now that's going to cover a lot of ground. I have to say that the one I keep coming back to is the psyche myth in its many variations. That's an old favorite, and those who know that I'm a fan of C.S. Lewis's "Till We Have Faces" will understand part of the reason why.
My favorite myth is the myth of Sisyphus. I like existentialism. I like dark stuff. I was introduced to it from reading Albert Camus. It's kind of always been my favorite myth. That's a real dark answer. But that's me. I'm a real dark person sometimes, which you can't tell when I'm talking. Most people just think I'm happy-go-lucky and whatnot. And I am. I think that's a huge part of I am. But I like stories about that, about struggling against the impossible.
I really like Bluebeard. That's a fairy tale or a folk tale. I don't know if it really counts as a myth, but I'm a big fan. I don't know why. I've just always found that one fascinating. When you retell fairy tales for children, as I did for quite a while with the Hamster Princess series, it turns out they will not let you redo Bluebeard with hamsters. I just want to put that out there. My editor was very down on the entire concept.
What's your favorite literary trope?
Now, the CrossingsCon people use singular there. That's not plural. And I don't care. I'm going to ignore it. I chose three because I don't want to just talk about one. So I love closed room mysteries or thrillers where everything happens in a single room or a single house and it's nothing of the outside world. I love them. I have been slowly inching my way towards writing one. I thought I had written one for what would be my third YA book, but that's actually not happening anymore because I thought of something better. But I do have a science fiction thriller thingy that is technically a closed room story. I love them. Oh, I just love them so much. All right, in media res, I talk about this a lot actually on Mark Reads and Mark Watches. I love starting in the middle of the action, and you just got to figure out what's going on, especially if you then back up to like 72 hours before, and then you see the lead up to whatever absurdity that you saw. And finally, this is a character literary trope. I love enemies to lovers. I just do. Guess what? That's Each of Us a Desert. Oh, I finally did it in a book. All right, yeah, those are easy. But those are an easy three where I was like right off the top of my head.
I am an absolute sucker for bodyguard love interest and honorable knight. Dude, paladins are my jam. You just don't even know. That said, hate the entire Arthurian cycle. Go figure.
Sudden reversals in general. Enemies to friends all the time, enemies to lovers. Yeah, there's a bit of that going on. There are too many. It's too big a grab bag to reach into readily and come out with something you go to a lot. But the sudden reversal, when everything seems to be going just fine and then it all goes to hell. Because that's where drama lies. Nobody goes to a dramatic work for the sake of seeing it, rain puppies and kittens on people and rainbows. Things going smoothly and then upending abruptly after much hard work. That's a favorite. And then, of course, fixing it again. But, there we go.
What are your literary pet peeves? Have you ever seen them done well?
Okay, the one that really gets me, the one that infuriates me the most, this is horror specific, not showing the monster. If you have gotten, Stephen King calls this showing Cthulhu in his book on writing. If you've gotten all the way through the book and you've built up the monster, show the damn monster. I know, it'll never be as scary as anything that the reader can come up with in their mind. That is true. That doesn't give you an excuse to punk out on it, though. You still got to show the monster, and you got to give it your best try, because otherwise, it's just cheap. It's you can get away basically with it doing it once. Found manuscripts. Nobody really expects you in a found manuscript to write the monster devouring you kind of thing at the end. Otherwise, you get the Lovecraftian thing where it's like the dude is just spewing adjectives about how the sun is breaking apart and Yog-Sothoth lives at the, crossroads of radioactive time or whatever, and he's like supposedly writing this while a monster is descending upon him. And no one believes that. The only person who's ever done that well, I believe, was J.R.R. Tolkien's They Are Coming with the scrawl at the end in The Mines of Moria. So you can do it with a found manuscript, but you only get to do it once, maybe twice. There are writers whose work I enjoyed enormously, and then I realized they were never going to show the monster, and they were just going to cheap out at the end of every single horror novel, and I stopped reading them forever because that's cheap. Like, yes, it probably won't be as scary as the thing in the reader's head, but by God, you try. Thank you. This has been Ursula's Soapbox.
Probably the one that annoys me most is when you get a clear sense of an author refusing the call, where they were plainly offered in their plotting the opportunity to go down a difficult path with it, and when they refuse that path, and when you can kind of see signs of it in the narrative, that they thought about going that way and then they backed off because it's too much trouble, because it would have made the book a lot longer, because it would have invalidated the 80-page outline they were working from. God knows that's what I'm familiar with. And sometimes you look at a story and are presented with something you hadn't anticipated, and you're left with the option of saying, okay, do I keep doing what I said I was going to do? Or do I break ranks with myself here and possibly get in a lot of trouble? And I can't help but sympathize with people in that situation. There are times when you really just do not want to throw away a lot of hard work that you've done for the sake of what may or may not work at the storytelling end, because you haven't really had a chance to game it out accurately or sufficiently in your head. It's hard. It can be hard. And when I see another author, come up against that and go the easy way, I really do try to sympathize with them. I really do. Sometimes it just doesn't work. It just doesn't.
My immediate answer to this, again with no hesitation, is that my literary pet peeve is particularly fantasy. It doesn't always happen in fantasy, but it usually happens in fantasy. Is the heavy exposition in the opening. I don't like info dumps. I don't like them. I just don't. I think it's, unless you have an emotional reason for them to happen, like it's being told from a character's point of view or anything, I want to see more of the character and the world and all of that stuff. But when you spend 17 pages explaining the rules of I'm out. And I say that, except I remember, and I haven't read it in a long time, but I remember loving the info dumps in Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. loving them, even though there were pages and pages of science I didn't necessarily understand. Something about how they were written just worked for me. So it's all subjective.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for guest interviews and more. And while you're at it, check out this playlist of all our interviews with our guests for 2021.